Hey everybody, it's Michael. I've been traveling since the beginning of 2021 and I'm currently in Turkey right now. So I just wanted to give you guys some insight on how to get back out there and start traveling again. Let's get into it. I plan on doing that in 3 simple categories. What to expect on the airlines, the COVID testing, and also the country restrictions. And if you don't want to watch the whole video, I put the times for each of those sections so you can go check those out. And now let's get into the video. Alright, firstly, what can you expect with the airlines? A lot of things have changed. If you travel internationally or domestically since COVID has happened, then you are going to notice some changes. On the flights and in the airports, you're required to wear a mask at all times. The only exception is eating or drinking, you don't need to wear a mask. The purpose, you're just trying to keep everybody safe. Now, some of the airlines are actually doing some cool things, like, for example, Delta Airlines. They're loading from the back of the plane first, which they should have been doing this like from the beginning planes were started. It makes much more sense to load from the back instead of loading from the front. Another thing that Delta Airlines implemented was having no middle seats, so you can't be sitting directly next to anybody, which is very cool. You don't have to worry about being cramped in your seats, at least for the time being traveling during COVID. So the majority, or almost all international flights, are going to require you to take a PCR COVID test. And in some cases, you'll also need to take an antigen test, which leads us into our next section. Internationally, you're going to need a PCR test. So basically, all the PCR test is, they take a small sample of DNA and multiply it millions of times so that they can analyze it and make sure that you don't have COVID. That's basically all the PCR test is. I've experienced they have 2 different testing methods of ways of doing this. One, they have this long little tube. They shove it in each nostril, which is not comfortable. It doesn't feel very good. But the other way is much easier. They just get a cotton swab and they put it on the inside of your nose, just wiggle it around a little bit, and that's all you need. The cost in the United States for getting one of these PCR tests done, I've seen it range anywhere from $100 for the standard test to $300 for the rapid test, which is quite a bit of money that you would be throwing on top of your flights. Now, a lot of insurances are actually covering this charge. Now, if you don't have insurance, you're not out of luck. You can still get this COVID test for free, but it's going to require you to do a little bit of digging. So some hospitals and health clinics actually have a form available that if you don't have insurance, you just sign this form and the cost of the PCR test is covered. Now, I can imagine that this is not at every hospital and health clinic, but you'll have to call beforehand to find out if local hospital or health clinic has one of these forms available. And that's if you don't have insurance, and that's actually a pretty good setup if you ask me. Now, if you do the standard test, that typically takes between 2 to 5 days to get back. Now, if you do the rapid PCR test, that will typically take between 24 to 48 hours to get back. So that is much faster, but if you're paying out of pocket, it is much more expensive. Alright, so now on to the next test that you're going to need to get. Yes, I know. Another test. But this one isn't that bad. They do this one directly in the airport. It's the antigen test. And this is when you're going on an international flight. I don't believe they have implemented this yet for domestic flights within the United States, but I'm sure it may head that direction. Basically, all the antigen test is, you get tested exactly the same. So you get a cotton swab in the nose, or you get a pole thing that pokes your brain. And hopefully they don't do that. But you get those results back within about 30 minutes. Basically what they're testing is, they're testing right within the 4 hours before you fly, just to make sure that you don't have COVID. Since the PCR test, you can take it within 72 hours before you fly. One last precaution just to make sure that you didn't get COVID within those 72 hours. Very simple. It's free and it's done by the airport. And those are the 2 tests you're going to need to fly internationally. Now, getting into the country restrictions. This is where it gets a little bit complicated. So, if your final destination country does not require a PCR test on entry, that doesn't matter if one of your connecting flights in another country does require the PCR test. If that's the case, then you still need to take a PCR test before you travel, just for that one connecting flight that you have. When you book a ticket for a flight, check the travel restrictions of each connecting flight that you have if you're traveling internationally. Now the other thing, you want a negative PCR test within 72 hours from the time you fly. Thinking the standard PCR test takes 2 to 5 days to get back. Yes, that's a problem. There's one unfortunate side of things is you could be ready for your flight, but you still don't have the result back from your PCR test. That is a problem. Here's the good part, is the airlines are aware of this and they're usually willing to accommodate you. My test wasn't ready and my flight was about to leave within 12 hours. So I called them to see if they were able to get me on another flight later that day or in the morning so I could get on the flight for my test. And they went through everything they had possible and they looked at it and they had 2 different flights for me. Fortunately, I didn't need to take those, but they had something ready to go, getting me into another flight. So that was awesome. I don't know how other airlines are handling it, but Delta does a great job at taking into account these COVID test requirements. So when you do get your test results, you can either text it to you or you'll have it on a piece of paper. You have to have it on check-in in your flight to that country. You get into the country that you're trying to get into, you'll just show it to the people, the security that you pass through. But again, if you want to ensure that you can get on your flight at the exact time that you need, you'll have to take a rapid COVID test. And if you don't have insurance, then that unfortunately is out of pocket if you can't find that medical form that makes it for free. Now, a great resource for finding out the restrictions of each country is it's like a IATA travel map. I actually use that to decide the country that I'm in now, Turkey. It had the least amount of restrictions out of the other countries that were around, so that's how I ended up here. Put a link to this map down below so you can check it out for yourself, so you can take a look at any country in the world that you would like to look at, and you can see what they require on entry. For example, Ukraine actually goes a step further and they require you to have travel insurance that's able to cover any COVID-related expenses while you're in that country. So that's just one example that IATA travel map goes over. So that is in the description below, and also all the major international and domestic airlines within the United States, I've put their COVID travel requirements in the description below as well in alphabetical order, so it's easier for you guys to find them. I hope this video provided you guys some value. If you know anybody that is going to be traveling in the near future, send them this video, and this maybe could help them out and save them some trouble in getting into the airport and not having everything that they need. Please leave a like below. It will help me out greatly. I hope this video allows you to get back out there and start exploring the world again in 2021. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.